lived for 3 weeks in Camel Town. Adil Abbas, 19-year-old Pakistani student, lived for 3 weeks in Camel Town, died on the third day of his job as an Uber Eats driver. He had a beautiful life back in Pakistan. He was from a small town, Kotiawala Shekha, which is a part of Mandibad in central Punjab. But life decided something otherwise for him in Australia. On the eve of 12th of August, his motorbike crashed at the corner of Alman and Lindsay Street, Camel Town. As a result, he lost his life.
आमीन आमीन अल्लाह अपने मेरे हबीब सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के सदके इनके लवाहिदीन को सब्र जमील अता फरमा खुद यदी साहिल अशकालना सुभान रब्बिका रब्बिल इज्जति अम्मा यसिफून व सलामुन अलल मुरसलीन वल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन अशहदु ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह व अशहदु अन्न ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह अशहदु ला इलाहा
He had no family here except second cousin Asad Ali in the Melbourne. Pakistani community in Camel Town was devastated. Many people came forward and organized the funeral, Salat al-Janaza and transportation of his body to Pakistan.
Hi everyone, on behalf of the PACOS team, welcome aboard for this discussion and campaign for licence reforms for overseas students that arrive here, get their overseas licence and convert that to become delivery drivers. The campaign is to reform the process of them getting their licence to drive in Australia. As you know, many of them just use the documentation or straight on the roads. Whereas my 16 and 20-year-old son, they have to drive 100, 150 hours and do the driver knowledge test, the DKT. On board today in our panel, we've got lawyers, migration agents, community workers, charity representatives, representative from the TWU. We also sent invitations to Police Minister Yasmin Catley, Dr. Mike Freelander, Federal Minister from Macarthur, and also Greg Warren, the State MP for Macarthur, who sent his apologies. Since the death on the 12th of August, this 19-year-old come here with some dreams. He was only here on third day on his job and he's killed at an intersection. We managed, as you've seen in the previous clip, to document the timeline from the date of his death, the funeral, spoken to relatives and friends, the accident report, the coroner report, and repatriation of the deceased dead body by the Pakistan consulate back to Pakistan. And unfortunately, sadly, the clips of his body arriving back home. In that time since his death, I think it was 48 hours, PACOS media managed to engage with ABC News. The story was broadcast on the 7:30 report, ABC, 22nd of August by journalist Lydia Fang. Now, Shafqat, you had the opportunity to be interviewed and you were in the front line of this process from his death to his funeral and to his body going back to Pakistan. So can you give us some insights of what happened in the background?
Look, that day we were having a event here. Thank you, first of all, Naeem, putting effort together and gathered us to here. I was involved in this youth for 30 years, and that day when I heard about it, this similar time, my son had a little procedure on back, and we were really, really worried. When I heard about him, that he lost the life, I could relate straight away with my son, where he had a little bit of sickness and we were really worried. I was thinking he had no family. He had no one to support. Even we didn't know who to call. And he was living in the same locality I live in. And from that moment on, my wife twisted my arm and said, look, you got to do something about it. And I went along with the story unfolded, the incident unfolded. I contacted a cousin, a second cousin of his who arrived from there. I met all his housemates, then contacted a brother overseas, and offered all the things I could do. And then went along, I set up a document, started research about, and at the end, when I interacted with Ali Chima, who's a friend of mine as well as a migration agent, and he highlighted these kids come because the law allows them to drive to 6 months. They are allowed to have that job, but there was three significant things which were ignored in the law. That is designed for tourists who need temporary drive around. It's okay for them, but not for a young person who's doing this as they work 5 to 6 hours with the pressure of delivering more and more things to extra money on there. So that was major things. They like if I have to go for a taxi license, I have to go a very strong test by the service news, but that wasn't the case with them. So I start to talking to the different student groups to say, look, we need to have a knowledge test compulsory for these kids. I have a lot of first-hand stories which I interacted with. I'll share later. With a couple of more students I learned. He had only 6 months old license. On a first week, he got a motorbike with the delivery account, and he's doing it. He mentioned I have clips to back it up. My statement. He said it's scary to go, but I don't have another job. So that's the story we are, and that's the situation we are living with these kids. And they are 19 years old, 20 years old. They don't have what you said expert to handle the hazards and situation like that. And even they are not aware of the road condition of Australian traffic.
Yeah, Shafkat, you mentioned that you had a meeting with Ali Jima, and there was 43 students, I think, that you got together with in it was actually a social gathering to begin with, and you took the opportunity to raise amongst those 43 students the issues of driving and guiding those students. What was the response from those students that you spoke to?
They could relate, and also, when you hear news from the distance, like if I tell somebody, like I heard about another accident, I could not relate much until somebody just explained the way we try to explain to those students, and they could see that we need to create more awareness to save for the accident. Like after that, it's 11, 12 days ago, and happened. And within that, I learned about this accident in a Granville, and just offline we were talking with the Danish. He said something happened in a Gold Coast. So number what they are quoting is way more than, and also we are not including the accident as well. So those students being part of say, look, we need to start a campaign where we get the change happen in the law, where there will be exception if somebody doing something for the work, longer hours. They should not be. They should be getting at least a knowledge test pass or having a different driving license. And that.
Sure. I'll go on to Nadeem Aslam. You're a lawyer, and you had to deal with the death of Abdul Abbas yourself as well. I think it was in your suburb of Macarthur. Lawyers fill gaps of issues. They have to address the things in the front line, and not everything you can do is very public. You do with the human side as well as the legal side. So tell me, what's the experience been in this particular case moving forward?
Thank you, Nareem. Look, the issue, that's the number of issues. First of all, regarding the incident, I think I was at the same function where I was in regards to the day when this incident happened. As I was leaving, I got a phone call from in fact, my brother, because he got a phone call from one of the students who knew, a person that knew Adil, and literally is crying on the phone saying, look, this is what have happened. And as the news filtered through, obviously a lot of the people that knew him were working. And they all once they realized what has happened, they all started first of all going there, and it was a trauma for not just, I would say it's a trauma. I think I spoke to Jack about that. It was a trauma not just for the family back home, but also the people that knew him, and especially the people that's working. For them, the thing in their mind is it could have been them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a realistic issue. It was something that really homed in on these people. Now, look, it's legally speaking, and I think obviously, and Shaktabai touched on the issues with licensing and all that. I think the reality is that this industry is not just the legal issues. I think the whole issue is going to come from. It's an approach. It has to be a holistic approach to this. It has to be a legal approach in terms of driving reforms, and depending on how far you take it. But it also has to be some form of immigration reforms as well. And in terms of the reforms and obligations put on the companies that hire these people. So, I mean, one side you can do is make an obligation on these people and give them, say, oh, you need to do a driver's knowledge test to do this. If they don't, I mean, the reality is a lot of the people that are coming and working in this country come from a low socioeconomic countries. So, yes, they might have a student visa, and reality is most of them are relying on job. And until they have job, they don't have money with them, and they need to start working straight away. So if you impose a restriction on that, for example, you must get your driving knowledge test done or get a local license done before you can work. What it exposes them then to is that they will try to do work underground, which becomes a more issue, which we always see, because people and this opens them up for exploitation. And I think one classic example, if you look at, is the 7-Eleven example, where there's a 20-hour working limit, and 7-Eleven exploited these, or at least the people who was franchisees of 7-Eleven exploited these people, and we had that big scandal blow up. It came up, and in that case, so it has to be illegal, but has to be other approaches together. Because if you, again, I said, if you give them, say, 6 months, you must do this, otherwise you can't drive, they might be doing driving underground, and it exposes them to criminal law issues where they might start getting into trouble, which is a wrong path to go on, because it's a slope, it's a sliding slope, where they have no choice. They have no choice to work. That's the reality. As much as immigration and everyone else say, no, these people are going to bring money from overseas, the reality is they come here and they work here, and without working here, they cannot support themselves, not even for a week. So any approach has to be a combination of factors. It has to be on immigration level, whether there has to be a pre-arrival training that they must undergo in terms of the driving rules, the road safety rules, and it might be something they might have enforced that they must attend that prior to they come here, or it might be an obligation put on the universities that when they come and start the thing, first thing or within the first 3 weeks, the university must give them some kind of a training courses, a crash course, just to give them a life in Australia type of approach. And to me, as a lawyer, look, I can say to you, do a driving reforms, and it's not going to solve the problem. It's just going to cause more problem for these people. And I think the other thing it has to be is the consideration of the 20 hours working limit, because it opens them up for exploitation, and then they're going to industries that are not safe, where their rights are not protected. And of course, the sad reality is, a lot of the people working gig economy are students and foreigners, and and obviously they lack of experience, exploitation, and all that, and they pay the consequences of their mistake.
Sure. No,
so
I
that
agree.
case,
There needs to be some sort of package when they arrive here. Thank you, Nadeem. One of the first points of contacts for many students are migration agents. They tend to be the first person they come in contact with before they come to Australia, and even after they arrive in Australia. Shakil Ahmed, you're a migration agent based in Auburn, and you've dealt with over 1,000 students. When you have a student come to you, or new arrivals, or whether you speak to them over the internet, what guidance do you give these students when they talk about working in Australia?
As you mentioned, that we are the first contact point for the students when they are applying for the admission from overseas, or when they are onshore in Australia. What's my understanding is like, I mean, we founded Australian Migration Network some time ago, which is actually arranging different kind of things, which is besides the point at the moment. Here, I would like to highlight a few things which are very critical. Number one, the students, why these extended accidents are normally happening. This is more because they are under the financial stress. Okay, and the financial stress, they have got a limited time to study and for work to make up their living and expenses of the institution. Okay, and they have to sometimes sending money back to their homes also. So it's a basically complex situation. This is not one thing alone that you make the legislation or you propose some kind of infrastructure which actually help the students. There needs to be they need to be addressed three dimensionally, like their financial states, their academic address, and the situation which is actually because of the low knowledge of the traffic regulations in Australia. So it has to be addressed in a three-dimensional way. If you address in a unilateral way, it won't work at all. Because when they come back, like I mean, the student in this case, the institution, whether they are the colleges or the universities, they should take the burden to actually complement the students here, because the students used to be the largest industry in the academic circles after coal and iron and other things. So 40 billion it used to be. Now after COVID it dropped. Now it's escalating again, and it has come back to $21 billion. If the government or the universities or educational institutions are making so much money, so they should complement this community, like the students community, for the safety, for their better way of life through means of legislation, social support, and counseling. So they stabilize themselves in a social, economical, and psychological manner to be useful for the society of Australia, for making good education, for doing better services, and causing little stress to the community here, because it comes back to the community that they have to rush around, they gather the funds. There's no problem in gathering the funds, but the point is government should be involved in this process to have a legislation to cover through fair work, undertaking the industry, education, and the transport system, because transport is very critical here. Like if they are driving the car, Uber car, or Uber sort of taxi, or what you call it, Uber bikes. So they should come under the regulation of transport, and they should be streamlining all these processes. And we somehow should take Uber also into account to make them realize that this is their name actually getting defamation in the industry. It is not Australian education. It is not the student. It is not the transport. Uber is also getting a bad name on it.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you, Shakil. So there's three things I took away from you. One is government intervention to happen. Secondly, there needs to be accountabilities from the service providers to providing these delivery services that these students are involved in. But back to a point that both you, yourself, and Denis mentioned, a whole Australian economy was reliant on these students during COVID for deliveries. I mean, you saw these drivers everywhere. When we were locked in our homes, it opened up this new economy, a new way of doing business, and a lot of businesses survived because of these delivery drivers. If they were not there to deliver these food services and other services, a lot of businesses are on the verge of collapse. We've come through that period now. We've moved on, and many Australians here have become adapted to having some sort of food delivery service as a common everyday thing, something which was trivial in the past or a novelty is become a way of life in the economy. Now, when these students unfortunately die and we have to repatriate these bodies back to their home countries and raising funds, we don't see what happens behind the scenes with charities. We know a certain amount, a dollar figure has been raised. Rob Nawaz, you're from Charity Australia. You had a role in raising funds for the deceased student. Can you give us some insight? What goes on in the background other than just a dollar figure? your involvement here in Charity Australia.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum.
Absolutely.
Thanks to everyone for highlighting this the issue which is facing our community, and shocked the incident, tragic incident happened just last week, and this was Charity Australia International. Actually, just want to introduce you. It is established in 2005 when the earthquake in Pakistan happened, and almost 100,000 people died in Kashmir and Pakistan. So at that time, we established Charity Australia International, and from last 18 years, Charity Australia has helped all over the world, different countries, whenever the humanitarian crisis happened, and particularly in Australia, whenever the natural disasters like flood victims, bushfire, and COVID-19, drought, whatever the situation, Charity Australia comes forward. And just I want to let you know, Charity Australia directors and all the volunteers are 100% volunteers. That is a totally non-profit organization, and none of the person is taking the salary or anything. So all the whatever we get the money, it goes to the needy person. So this is one thing which I want to show. And there is another House of Skina. It's one of the institution which is underworking that one, which providing the shelter and counseling to the ladies suffering from domestic violence. So this is the one of the Charity Australia International. So particularly for this funeral services, we are from last more than 15 years. Whenever some incident happened in Australia, $9,000 to $10,000 for one person at urgent basis, very hard to get sometimes. So whenever someone asked us, requested us, we came forward and we helped there are so many cases we have dealt in funeral cases. Particularly, if you want to talk about this case, this was on the 30th of August, on Sunday morning, 5 o'clock. I wake up early in the morning, and I saw a message on one of the group that the name of the person was Wakar Ahmed, and he posted the message on one of the group, and then they requested me, someone, that can you help this one Charity Australia. And when I saw the message, believe me, I could not then take myself away from this case, because when I see that this is a just 3 weeks guy who has dreams to live in Australia, spend his life only 3 weeks. He has not opened even his bag fully, and he's going back. So this was the issue when came to me. Then the Vakar consulted me. He spoken to me. He sent the pictures, and then I decided to help this funeral, because at that time I don't think any other one was in a couple of hours later, one of his cousin, Adil Ali from Melbourne, came. But before that, I was thinking he is a student, no one is looking after. I saw his picture on the street, which he gave me. So then I helped him. I spoke to my chairman, who is Mujahid Rana, and he asked me to first of all consult to the Consul General, because Consul General in Sydney have the sometimes funds for this transportation and funeral services. And I waited. I spoken to. I found that Ashraf, who is our Consul General, is overseas. He is in Pakistan. I spoken a couple of days back him. So then I spoken to the Saima Jamil, Deputy Consul General, and requested him that if there are any financial we have available in the Consul General, so we can support this young victim who has passed away. So, but they said that they don't have the money at this stage. And then also they promised that we will issue the NOC. Then I coordinated with the Consul General. Then I gave the number of Adil, his cousin, and then all the started. So we within, because we always collect the funds whatever the needed. So we raised from 30th of August to 50th of August, means only 2 or 3 days, and we have raised $38,000 for this young guy for transportation and to help his family. So all the funeral services, whatever there we have paid, and I personally attended the funeral services in Oban, and I met with the funeral services people, and that is a great help from the charity Australia, and all the money which we have. Then I requested Adil to come in my office. He came to my office, and I showed him all the transactions, whatever there and whatever the money we have. So he was very happy. He expressed very thankful. So then I have also spoken to Pakistan, and this is how Charity Australia is not only this case, but from many years they are helping in such cases. And I think this is the our responsibility. Personally, I am from last 25 years in Australia, and I am community work always comes forward and help the community just for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we can get in paradise, and that is our motto. Jazakallah.
Naim got a little, challenge with the sound by some reason. So I just try to help from here to him. I just go to Jack Burgess, who also joined. His name will join soon. So I just want to ask him his involvement with the case and his views on how we can improve the situation from here for the, because we are now working towards to avoid further accidents before it
Yeah,
becomes controllable.
yeah. Look, thank you so much, Shafkat. Can I just start by acknowledging everyone on the call today and everyone in the community? It is so inspiring to see that at tragic times like this, a community really bands together to support both the family involved, to help with the repatriation, to fundraise for the family. It is really inspiring to see. It's really tragic that we need to do it, but it's really inspiring to see so many people have pulled together like this. Look, there's been a lot covered, and I don't want to repeat what people have said. I think I agree with everything said today. I just want to make a few extra points. These companies, like Uber, have a real responsibility here when they hire people on their work, when they're making their millions of dollars off the backs of these food delivery workers, to make sure they're safe on our roads and that they're treated fairly. And that's not what's happening here. I just want to take a moment to read out some names, because these are the names of others who've died working for Uber Eats. Adil, Abbas, obviously we're all here today for, but there has been Akshay Deepak Dultani, Ik Wong, Bejoy Paul, Xiaokai Shen, Zhao Shen, Daddy Freddy, Gaurav Deep, Burak Dogan, Chen Kim Pai, Quan Wei, and Julian Tremeau. They are only the workers we know about. A lot of these accidents happen and no one ever identifies they were working for Uber at the time. So we have this huge company making millions of dollars. They bring people onto their app to work for them. They offer them a 2-minute safety video in the way of training. They do no other treks to support them before they chuck them on the road. And then they pay them half the minimum wage. So they have to work 60, 70 hours just to get by and make a living. They don't provide them with workers' compensation. And then they pressure them to rush. And if they're not delivering fast enough, they can deactivate them, terminate their account, strip their livelihood away from them. And then with all that pressure, we have a third of food delivery workers saying they're seriously hurt or injured at work. So this is a catastrophe that's happening at the moment. I agree with everything everyone said. There needs to be real legal reform in this space.
Absolutely. Yes,
And I'll just
a duty of care, what we say, is a fancy word, but not implement. It will not be implemented until the law does not force them to. What do you think?
look, absolutely. I mean, these companies, they're concerned with making money, and this might sound horrible, but I have to say it. These people that work for them are nothing but numbers on an app to them. I mean, they don't know their faces, they don't know their stories, they don't know their communities, and they treat them like numbers on an app. So we need laws that force these companies to treat these workers fairly. They are offering a really important service to communities in this country. And excitingly, the way we do that at the moment is the federal government in the coming months is going to be looking to introduce laws to set standards for these workers. So just a real message to this community. You've done so incredibly well in mobilising for a deal. Can I just ask if anyone's willing to continue to be involved with that? There is a really crucial time with the federal government now is considering to introduce laws. All the voices we need in every community in Australia to get behind that conversation will really help us in getting justice for these workers.
Yes, we all with that with you. And name your voice is back.
Yeah, I can hear the audio is
Yeah.
back now.
Okay, no, that's
Thank you
all right.
very much.
You
Jack.
want to ask any more thing to Jack?
No, just a compliment. It was really, I'm really glad the TWU come on board. It really means a lot to us, to the community, to all the delivery drivers, maybe even to the families of the deceased, that someone is looking after their back. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. But there's something else happened. We've spoken to migration agents, charity workers, as well as lawyers. There seems to be a new phenomenon with so many students now seeking help via social media. Now, our next guest, Danish Nagash, he has 9,000 followers. He's a digital creator. He's an admin of the Facebook page, which I'm also a member of, PCIA, 75,000 members, Danish. Excellent work. But I see there's an endless trail of posts of students and delivery drivers who are delivering on these platforms, asking for help, whether it be an accident, whether it be a death, or all sorts of issues. So can you tell us more about that, Danish?
First of all, Naeem, we need to understand the background of it. So basically, when a student going to come from Pakistan to Australia, he enter into a race to get the next fees done, race to get the first accommodation done, race towards their first tuition fees done. So nobody have talked about the depression, what they got. They are the people like 18, 19-year-old guys, like no experience of handling how they can express their depression to anyone or anything related to their mental health or anything. They don't focus about that. They have entered into the race where they think, okay, this is my first day. And unfortunately, I have to say like that, the people, they land into their house, like where they land, probably they are the one who instructed them, okay, take my car, go and drive, learn the rule, instead of asking them, sit beside me and do the end, focus on the rules, what we do. So there are a number of cases we have observed where people say, okay, I've just been here, I need to buy a car. So I would recommend everybody who is coming from Pakistan, so probably you are investing around $40,000-$50,000, take $5,000 for next 1 or 2 month rent. You observe first how Australia work, how the road rules are, and probably this would be the best approach to do it, instead of just coming back, sit on the car, sit on your bike and just start riding Uber. And probably they don't know the road rules and things like that. So unfortunately, these incidents happen.
Thank you, Danish. It's really, I want to highlight a couple of more things. I mean, there's a lot of takeaway. I'm taking my notes as well. One thing was very important, what you highlighted, having extra bucks on there. But I like, when the visa is finalized back in the country with the international students, I think they have to, like the last step, they normally put it there, the medical, when they already decided. I think they should have an extra thing to have a basic knowledge about the law and the well-being while you go there, because they come from a family here. They are relying on themselves and their mates around who can guide them, misguide them. So if they have some sort of online, some sort of self-learning training, and they submit as a result, say, look, I have done this, at least they have the showing the understanding. It can be dignity or a combination of other things, knowing the culture, the values, and the law, legal obligations. Certain things in the other culture is okay to do, but when you come here, it might be against the law. So what do you think is that kind of process in place where the embassies around the world, Aussies embassies, can implement, and it can prevent a lot of accidents like this?
Yes, Shafkat, if you have noticed our group where mainly people focus on like, I need a job on the day one. So they have not realized like how they're gonna survive. It's like basically they're the survival in their head. It's basically they ask everybody to help them for the day first to get them on a job without knowing even one day, without spending a day in Australia. They need first day job. So I would recommend whoever is coming, probably come like a month before or 2 weeks before. Make sure you go and explore Australia first instead of doing the first day job.
Yeah, this is another thing which, like when I was mentoring our supervisor to many students back in when I used to teach in a uni, I used to divide 3+2+2, or sometimes say it's a flexible. I said, look, you need to focus on three things, not just the one. One is your study, which you came for. The second is your survival. Now we will need a little bit extra to survive, which is not a huge. And the third one is important to your own well-being and the future needs. Future needs means how you're going to get your career if you're planning to stay. So if you have what you're saying is, and what Shakil touched on as well, if you only solely focus is to just to work, then it's a very short-term goal, and that shortcut can lead to disasters like that. And they says, look, what Jake said, and you partly touched on very rightly, we are not talking about the mental stress they go through because it's undocumented. There's no study on it. And we are parkours now, we know about it. We start to work on these things in the background to address those things, because it's not a small can of worms, it's a big one. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
So Nima, but your sound is back there as well.
So good now, but I'd also like to thank the audience members that are watching live stream. Please, on your behalf, raise your voice in all the forums you're in, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, all sorts of social media, your friends, because we need to get further traction. We need traction. We don't need more dead bodies. We don't need more accidents. We don't need students who are suffering emotional issues, financial issues. We need government intervention, and we need to have a package for these students when they arrive. And most importantly, mandatory testing for the driver knowledge test for all students upon arrival to Australia or before, so that these young people have a go. And again, I iterate again, our delivery platforms, our economy, food economy, is relying on these students. So I thank all the panel members have joined us tonight. Is really appreciated. Danish, Shakil, Jack Ritros from the TWU, Nadeem Aslam from Charity in Australia, Rob Nawaz, and everyone who has joined us on this platform to listen to us. On behalf of PACOS, thank you very much. This is our second stage. Our first stage was media engagement and tracking and documenting Adil's death. Let's move forward, and we'll keep everyone up to date as we progress.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Have a good day. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Great.
PACOS is a community project in Australia. We create opportunities for common interactions. In those interactions, we connect people based on their common interests. And those common interests and goals make such a strong community. And it's not limited to one part of the community. We are connecting interests in students and new migrants to the established Pakistani professionals and to other businesses, and create opportunities for them to collaborate with each other. Along with that, they will interact with the community, organization, and many outlets of Pakistani Australia. You can know more about PACOS project by visiting our website or our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel.